All right, we're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm completely with you on the Mets, to be honest. I know they're off to a hot start. The rotation's looking good. Everything's looking up for them, but it's hard to get hyped about a team that just sort of disappoints you every single season, lets your expectations down. Um, yeah, I mean, I like them, but another team that is looking really good and has my attention right now is the Pirates and the Diamondbacks. Those are actually two teams that are off the hot starts that I didn't really expect to get off the hot starts. Now, obviously, there's a chance that they regress to the mean and like everything just ends up going the way we thought it would go with those two teams. But as of right now, those two teams have my attention. The Dodgers off to a miserable start. They had that rough series with the Giants. They're 2-5 right now, which I mean, two of those losses are Kershaw. They just can't give this guy run support. So that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. But again, we're only a week into the season. It's easy to get caught up in everything as it stands. So we'll have to follow this closely as the season goes on.
Definitely. I just want to echo the Dodgers. Their lineup needs to start hitting. I think their pitching's been okay, but they have guys hitting under like 200 in their lineup. They need to turn that around if they want to, stay on the playoff track. I have them as a wild card team. I know that was sort of taken as a hot take, but if this continues, I hope they can even make the playoffs if they keep continuing this way.
Yeah, we're probably gonna look back at this and laugh because of how stupid we'll sound saying that the Dodgers offense is like they're gonna lead the league in runs scored by the end of the year probably. So again, we'll just have to see how that all goes. Gruz, what are your takeaway like in the NL West? Because we didn't have you on with Tuma. Zach's hot take was that the Rockies were going to win the division. How do you think the NL West is going to shape up there? Because it's looking a little weird right now.
I always am in on the Giants. They do this weird thing where they have a fountain of youth, and I think it's going to work out eventually. Yeah. They're beating up on the Dodgers, but I don't think they're going to win. I still think the Dodgers are going to win at the end of it. I think the missing JD Martinez in Arizona is going to be tremendously, problematic. What are you going to do? They had 30 home runs in the last 2 months from JD. What was it, 28?
Yeah, it was something to say.
Yeah. So, but the Rockies are going to be interesting. The Rockies will be in the playoffs. I just don't think as the division winner.
Yeah, I really don't. It's I counted out the Diamondbacks obviously before the season, so I bet against them like 3 times. Lost all 3 of those bets, so I'm kind of scared to say anything negative about them right now. So again, we'll just have to see how it goes on. Going back to your Yankees and how Zach was talking down on them a little bit, Giancarlo Stanton got booed. I'm interested what your take is on that because he went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts. If you're getting Stanton, this is just my take on it. If you're getting Stanton, you got to expect a lot of strikeouts. I mean, that's just who Giancarlo Stanton is. So when he got booed for that, I was a little taken off by it.
It's just normal Yankee fan stuff. They want the expectations to be so high now. They want him to hit 87 home runs. Do you realize that most of this fan base doesn't actually watch baseball, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I was giving you guys the benefit of the doubt a little bit there, but I do get what you're saying. I mean, a lot of those guys, a lot of the fans, it feels like are just there to boo. Like that's why they show up at the ballpark is so they can get a few boos out. So anytime a guy strikes out 5 times in a game, that's prime time to do so. So
yeah, I mean, my takeaway from it is his post-game interview after was great. He's like, "Yeah, I struck out 5 times. You're supposed to boo me." I'm like, "Good."
He's right.
You're loving it. That's exactly right. And then the next day he goes out, the first pitch he sees, he deposits like 460 into the left field stands. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot he could do that. So
yeah, but then he struck out 3 times, like 3 more times that game.
Strikeouts don't bother me.
I agree with you. I mean, look at Aaron Judge. He struck out a ton last year, and he was a god in New York.
They get their walks. If you're walking and getting on base, if your on base is close to 400, then you're doing something right, regardless of how you make your outs.
I agree with you. And then we saw, I think it was the first game of the season yesterday or the day before that Stanton, Judge, and Sanchez all homered. So that's an encouraging sign if you're a Yankee fan. I do think that lineups, I don't want to say it's been bad, but it's underperformed so far. I think we're going to see it blow up sort of as the season goes on.
Well, you know why? It's because everyone's hurt, right?
Yeah. Your guy Drury, Judge and Drury. He's on the DL.
Aaron Hicks. Unfortunately, Ellsbury, Gary Sanchez had a cramp yesterday.
Ellsbury's on the DL?
Ellsbury's on the DL. Clint Frazier isn't playing.
Yeah.
Do the Yankee fans realize that Didi Gregorius is your best player and better than Derek Jeter?
That was one of my important questions I was going to bring up later in the podcast about Didi. So hold that. I promise you, it's a good question.
Okay, because I just think he's so underrated by Yankees fans. Like I would go for that guy.
I'm the other way.
Really?
As a Yankee fan. I want to sell Didi Gregorius, but that's an excellent teaser for later.
Wow.
Let's save it for later. Yeah, it's a tease in the radio biz.
Definitely save that. Let's move on to some news. We got Charlie Blackmon of the Colorado Rockies, star center fielder. He was in the MVP race last season. Chuck Nasty, as they call him, got extended for 6 years, $108 million. He got paid. I think it's a smart move on Blackmon's part because you never know how the free agent market's going to go these days. I'm sure he would have gotten a nice payday if he had waited it out and gotten free agency, but I mean, $108 million is nothing to scoff at, and he gets to stay at home in Colorado for it. So I think it's a good deal for him. Whether it's a good deal for the ball club remains to be seen because obviously $108 million's big contract, and they got another star on that team who's approaching his free agent year soon in Nolan Arenado. So they're going to have to decide how that money is going to be divvied up between Arenado and the rest of the squad. And it leads me to believing that Arenado is not going to be a Rocky for too much longer. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about the contract and how it's going to send sort of a ripple effect around the Rockies organization.
Yeah, I actually think it was a pretty bad team contract just because Blackmon's already 31 years old. If he was 28, I think that's a great deal for both sides because as you said, teams are not spending in free agency this year, and it leads into this tanking point that everyone's talking about because there's no salary floor where teams have to get to. You know, Tampa Bay could spend $30 million on their payroll if they want, you know, so they're not going to, you know, put the money up for Charlie Blackmon. Not that they would, but there's a lot of teams out there that wouldn't do that. And like you said, there's a lot of other guys coming up. I mean, Trevor Story's up in next year. He's eligible for arbitration. He's making $500,000 this year. I mean, he's going to be asking for at least, you know, 10 million probably with his power numbers. I know he's struggled a bit this year. And like you said, Arenado, I think they've already sang the note that he's gone. That's why they signed Blackmon. I think Arenado is going to be looking for – he's a winner. He wants to go to a winning organization, and the Rockies just haven't been that historically. So I think he's gone. And then they also have to pay LeMahieu, who's making $8.5 this year. 2019, he's a free agent. He's going to get, you know, probably $15 million on the free agent market. So there's a lot of guys coming up with their contracts for the Rockies. So they have a little window here before they lose, you know, their stud Arenado. And I think they were desperate. So they said, you know, if Blackmon's willing to do an extension, let's sign him up. He is a little old. It's a lot of money, but we can't lose all these guys and keep filling the seats and keep the energy going with them.
I agree with all that. Graz, do you have any Charlie Blackmon takes?
My take is on the Arenado side of things. He's definitely not coming back, and I think it's a representation of how the entire market's been for third baseman. If we would like to recall that Moustakas got like $12 to play third base this year. And so it's a more center field is a more valued position in baseball now, especially Charlie Blackmon, who plays a great defensive center field along with hitting. And so they're saying, we want a center fielder. We can find a third baseman for cheap. Fuck you, Arenado, pretty much. I will cut out the fuck.
I hope they're not doing that because Arenado is the centerpiece of this team. When it comes down to it, he is the face. He's the guy who sells merch. He's the guy who gets asses in the seats at the ballpark. I love Charlie Blackmon. He's a great player. But if you're going to put those two next to each other, I mean, I would argue in Arenado's favor when it comes to who is the guy. Now, Charlie Blackmon's closing the gap. There's no doubt about that because he's an absolute stud as well. But I think if you're going in terms of marketability and just star factor, I think it's Arenado. But the debate can be made. I will say that the debate can be made. So I'm interested to see long-term how it affects the Rockies. I just hope it doesn't break the team up too much now that they're becoming big spenders. I know it's keeping their guys, like they're keeping Blackmon. They're not really going out and spending in free agency or anything like that other than bolstering their bullpen a little bit. So that's an encouraging sign, but I don't know if this bodes well for Arenado. I'll leave it at that. So one of my favorite stories from the past week, the Tebow watch rolls on. Tim Tebow with a home run in on the first pitch of his first Double-A at bat with the Rumble Ponies, the Mets Double-A affiliate. You gotta love those Double-A names. But he goes yard, and you know what? He just forces his name back in the headlines. I don't know how many times I have to say it. The Tebow watch is very much on, And, what do you guys got on Tebow? I don't know what else I can say about this guy.
Yeah, just when you think he's sort of out of the news, because he had a rough spring training, he, fights himself back into the headlines with plays like this. And he's playing the Hartford Yard Goats, who are the AA affiliate for the Rockies, in, I believe, a week and a half. And all 3 games in the series are already sold out. So say what you want about Tim Tebow. He is putting asses in seats across AA ballparks across the Northeast. I'll probably be in attendance just to see what Tebow does. So, does he have a major league future? No, but does he put asses in seats? Yes.
Major league future, I don't know. I mean, my bold prediction was that he was going to play in an MLB game and get a hit this season. So don't count out that major league future just yet. Sandy Alderson saw that home run. It is licking his chops. He is ready for Tebow to make a nice pinch hit appearance in like August or something. Graz, what do you think about Tebow?
I love it. I love everything Tebow was. I love everything Tebow is now. Also, are we taking a family podcast trip to this Tebow game? Like, we could go. I'm in. Let's do this.
As long as if we do that and cover it as content and just bring Tebow, like wear Tebow gear and just hold Tebow signs and try to meet Tebow, I'm all in.
I have a Tebow jersey. I have my Florida Gators Tebow jersey. I'm a big fan.
I am all in. I don't care. I'll buy a Tebow jersey if it comes down to it.
It's the same colors as Mets colors. It'll blend. It's perfect.
There you go.
He will get a major league at bat in September when the Mets are irrelevant. Book it now.
Well, yeah. I mean, I completely agree. It might take until September, but Tebow is going to get that major league at bat this season. You can bank on it. Bet your mortgage on that.
I don't know if I think I'm the sane one, and then you guys are talking, and it's making me think I'm the insane one for saying Tebow won't get a hit this year in the major leagues.
Well, I said he'd get a hit. Graz didn't say anything about getting a hit.
Graz has got a Tebow jersey.
I've been a Tebow fan since Florida. I'm a football fan.
If you have a Tebow Florida jersey, I think that's perfectly acceptable. It's like once you start getting the if you get like a Broncos jersey or like a Mets jersey, you might be a little bit of a psychopath. But I think the Florida jersey is probably the most acceptable.
There's a picture of me on the internet with I have a Pope hat and my Tebow jersey going out for things.
I actually might splurge in a Fireflies Tebow jersey. I think that's the look I'd want. The Rumble Ponies is a little much. I like the Fireflies.
Graz is a man of God, and so is Tebow. So makes sense.
Yeah, they're both very similar. All right, so that's the Tebow watch. The Tebow watch will roll on throughout the season, I'm sure, especially if I'm expecting him to get a hit. So we will see how that works out. We got a new segment here on Tater Talk. It's called Web Gems. Every once in a while, we're going to find something interesting online. On the old internet, on the old interwebs, and we're going to talk about it on the podcast. So what I found today is an article on MLB.com saying 10 small sample starts to believe in. So in other words, 10 guys who are red hot to start the year. We're just going to go over whether we believe in their starts or not. So we'll start with Shohei Ohtani, someone who is red hot right now. Zach, I'll let you begin here.
Is it crazy? I believe in him more at the dish than on the mound. Like, I think he's a better hitter than everyone thought, and I think he may be not as good as a pitcher as everyone thought. So I'm in on Ohtani either way.
Hold on one sec, guys. Sorry.
Ohtani-san.
I am so in on Ohtani. I love it. I love it so much. I have like 3 questions about him for later.
It's crazy they said he wouldn't like DH that much. He's DH the last like 4 games in a row.
3 home runs in a row. Of course, you can put him back in the effing lineup.
I know. It's crazy. He's pitching tomorrow, I think, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad. I'm just doing a podcast. I'm letting you know.
Nice.
Does he want to come on to discuss?
I asked my mom. She's like, no. Like, I don't really know about baseball. I'm like, yeah, you're more of a football fan.
All right, I'm back. Sorry. All right, Zach, do you have to continue your Ohtani take or
just start? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm 100% in on Ohtani.
I don't know how you cannot be in on Ohtani at this point. Spring training was a little discouraging. I didn't think he was going to have that great of a season. Just based solely off that, I think the hype died down significantly. he was terrible. Like he wasn't just bad and struggling a little bit. He looked very uncomfortable. He looked awful. But that just goes to show you can't take spring training too seriously at all. It seems like the red hot players in spring training cool down when the season starts, and the awful players in spring training heat up. So Ohtani, 3 straight games with a homer. He looked good in his pitching start. So this guy has suddenly become one of the more intriguing and exciting players in the league. So yeah, I believe in Ohtani.
Graz definitely.
I am all in, 150% in.
Yeah,
I love two-way players. I like players that people don't want to succeed. So I am 100% in. And you guys didn't talk about the thing is that second home run he hit on a slider outside off Kluber, who's won the Cy Young last year. That's an impressive shot, and he hit like 450 into the center field. It was unbelievable. So
yeah, I think it's unanimous. If you're not in on Ohtani, you just don't want fun at this
I don't
point.
know how good he is, but I'm rooting for him to be hit like 60 home runs.
Yeah, I mean, he's at least showed his potential, judging solely off these last few games. It shows that it's there. It's just maybe it won't be consistent, but he has something there. And I don't know if it's because pitchers haven't figured him out yet. Obviously, you have to wait it out a little bit in that aspect for the scouting reports and all that. But I think if you have to at least be somewhat of a believer in Ohtani right now. Next up, we have Matt Harvey. So Matt Harvey is finally not looking too terrible. He's actually looking pretty damn good so far this year. Again, it's a small sample. We talked about how we don't want to get too caught up on the Mets as of right now, but are you guys believers in Matt Harvey? Zach, I'll start with you.
So I took Matt Harvey with the last pick in my fantasy baseball draft, and it was an absolute steal because I saw him in spring training, and he looked like the old Matt Harvey with that hard cutter. I watched his first game that he pitched in cold weather, mind you, but I think he's almost back. He does not have the velocity he used to have. He's throwing 92, 93 instead of 95, 96, but he's still hitting his spot. So I actually think Harvey's here to stay. I think he's actually learned how to pitch rather than just throwing as hard as he can. So I'm in on Matt Harvey.
Yeah, Graz, what do you think?
I was in on Matt Harvey to do kind of lukewarm this year because I want the Yankees to take a flyer on him next year for like 1 year, $8 million, $9 million. So I'm not surprised that he's learning how to pitch. Also, I think it really helps that Mickey Callaway is an excellent pitching coach.
That is very true. I think that's a big factor for sure. I think similar to the way that I think anyways, that Cora sort of reinvigorated the Red Sox. I think Callaway's done that to the Mets. So I think a lot of it does have to do with the manager, but I think Harvey just having the offseason to sort of recuperate and know that he's not going to have that velocity and he has to actually be a pitcher, not just power fastballs by people. And we're going to start seeing Syndergaard have that same sort of approach too, because he's actually going into more of he's not focusing as much on his velocity. He's focusing more on accuracy now, and he's not like focusing as much on weightlifting. He's focusing more on, resistance training and endurance. So those are some things to keep an eye on. The strategy that the Mets are taking right now could actually take them in a different direction than we've seen in years past. So next up, we have Garrett Cole. So Garrett Cole's off to a good start with the Astros. He had an off year last year with the Pirates. Zach, what do you think about Garrett Cole this year with the Astros? Do you have big expectations?
I don't have big expectations because he's the 4th or 5th starter in the rotation. I mean, they're so stacked.
Crazy. Yeah.
Like Graz was saying earlier, I think people forgot how good Garrett Cole was. And last year with the Pirates, it was just sort of a down year. They weren't playing for anything. They weren't good. He finally got to an organization that, is the favorite to win the World Series. I think he's going to be lights out this year because the pressure is not on him. In Pittsburgh, it was on him because he was the Lord and Savior of their pitching staff. So I'm in on Garrett Cole. I think he'll have a great season.
Graz, what do you think about Cole?
You know what's awesome about being in that rotation? He is the 3 starter, and that makes you feel very good. And maybe even the 4, because McCullers is awesome too. And anytime you can go into a new environment that's a winning environment and then talk to maybe the best pitcher of our generation, not named Kershaw, in Verlander, you can learn some things on how to pitch.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think the pressure is off of him now that he doesn't have to be the guy. The talent's always been there for Cole, but I've never really looked at him as a bona fide ace. And now that he doesn't have to be that with the Astros, I'm a big believer in him. Next up, we have Gregory Polanco from the Pirates. Another reason he has been one of these guys who you kind of expect pretty big things from each year, but he hasn't really lived up to it. It's hard to live up to. I mean, that outfield with McCutchen, Polanco, and Marte was supposed to be the best in baseball for years, and it didn't really work out that way. And Polanco has kind of struggled, and now he's looking pretty good this season. So Gregory Polanco.
I'm lukewarm on Polanco. I think he's probably just off to a hot start. I think he'll come back to the mean, which a lot of players do. I think now that they've traded away McCutchen, I think he sort of sees himself as that middle of the order bat. So, and they didn't have any expectations coming into the season. So he's probably has a little bit of weight off his shoulders and he's just allowed to play. So I don't think he'll keep the streak he's going right now, his hot start, but I think he'll be, above average for what people thought he was coming into the season.
Ross, what do you think?
Billy Bean loves him. His on base is well over 400. I don't understand how that's possible.
Yeah, I don't regress. I think we can at least expect that to drop a little bit. Miguel Cabrera is an intriguing one for me. Cabrera had, I think, the worst season of his career last year, and now he's finally starting to look like his old self. Now, I don't necessarily expect him to become the Miguel Cabrera of like 2009 or wherever his prime was. But if he can even help that Tigers team hold itself above water a little bit, I think that would be considered a success for him.
Yeah, I think with Cabrera, it really just depends on how competitive the Tigers are moving on in the season. If he gets traded at the deadline, I know he has a ridiculous contract. I think he could, stay on that upward trajectory because he just wants to be in a playoff race at this point of his career, and I don't think the Tigers will be. So I expect him to plateau out from his hot start.
Yeah, I think he's starting to get washed. I think Ron Gartenhire is going to have a decision to make eventually, whether he and the team, what to do with him. Maybe even send him down to AAA if he goes back to a season like he had last year and give some young guys a chance. I think Cabrera's on the tail end of his career. Next up, we have Joe Panik, second baseman for the Giants, kind of having a power surge that no one really saw coming. He was the Giants offense for the first series against the Dodgers. Now, obviously, that power is not going to last throughout the entire season unless there's some crazy turn of events, because this is not a power hitter by any means. But Joe Panik, still a very solid player for the Giants. And if he performs alongside McCutchen, Posey, and Longoria, who hasn't done shit this season so far, but if all of those guys can get it together, then maybe this could be a magical year for the Giants, even though they are missing Samardzija and Bumgarner right now.
Yeah, I think it's what you said. He had one good series. I mean, he's got 3 home runs and 3 RBIs. So that tells you, like, outside of those home runs, he's like not doing a ton to drive and runs. But I think, anytime you can get pop from your second baseman, that's a positive. So, Joe Panik is an above average second baseman defensively and offensively. So I think he'll have a good season. Again, he has a lot of protection in that order. He's not looked on to be the power guy, as you said.
Next up, Zach Kozar for the Angels hit a walk-off the other night. And I think it was like the 14th inning. This guy, the last couple seasons, I mean, if he does what he did last year for the Reds, this guy's kind of a stud for that Angels team. And it's funny because I was looking at a graphic. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but his numbers from 2011 to 2016, he was worse in every single offensive category than he was in just 2017 by itself. So I don't know if he's having a little help from some PEDs. I don't know what's going on with Zach Kozar, but whatever he's doing, it's working. I'll say that.
Yeah, I was talking to someone at work the other day. I think Zach Kozar was the most underrated signing of the offseason. He was, like you said, he's had a couple really good years for Cincinnati. If he can even do a third of that for the Angels on the contract they got him on, I think it's a win-win for both sides. Anaheim's a great place to play. Kozar, wants to be on a winning team because the Reds have been downright terrible the past couple of years. So I believe in Zach Kozar. I think he'll be good for the rest of the season.
Now, you know who I really believe in this year is Xander Bogaerts. Just hit a grand slam today. Today is Saturday that we're recording this. He had a grand slam against the Rays. He is absolutely raking. I think we might actually even see him. This might be an overreaction just based off what we saw the last week, but he's emerged as a serious candidate for MVP if he can even keep up close to this pace. So Xander Bogaerts, I have my eye on big time for a comeback year.
Yeah, I believe in him just because I think Cora is the perfect manager for him. Bogaerts, his personality is like an Islander kid, you know, like John Farrell it's like vinegar and water with Bogaerts. Bogaerts is a very sensitive kid and he doesn't like getting yelled at. And John Farrell is all about discipline and yelling at his players to get them going. I think Cora has taken a much softer approach. Obviously, he's a Latino guy as well. And I think Bogaerts is being more aggressive earlier in the count. I don't know how many pitches I saw him take right down the middle, first pitch fastballs last year. And this year he's hitting those. So I'm optimistic about Bogaerts, but I'm also not holding my breath because I've seen him go through, enormous slumps as well.
Yeah, he's a very streaky guy. I do think he reworked his swing completely in the offseason. He's not as much trying to have a level swing. He's uppercutting at everything, and he's hitting bombs. So if he can keep that up at the same success rate that he's at right now, I think he's in for a serious, serious year. Next up is a guy, I'm not even sure if you guys know who he is. He's not a household name, but he's actually making a little bit of noise for the Cardinals. Jose Martinez. He's going to steal some time from Matt Carpenter at first base. He's a first base / outfielder. Not a household name by any means, but he finally got a chance last year to show what he's got at the big league level. He's 29 years old. So this guy has been sitting around the minor leagues for a while. And he had an 897 OPS last year. And this season so far, he's doing pretty well too with an 872 OPS. So again, not sure if you guys are aware of this guy, but I want to at least put him on your radar.
Yeah, Jose Martinez. He is a very weird swing. It's almost like Julio Franco-esque, if you remember him. Yeah. He's one of those players where it doesn't look pretty, but he, like you said, he's got a great OPS. He's a good power hitter. I just think he's performing above average right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped off, and I wouldn't be surprised if he kept this up. Like you said, he came up last year and did pretty well for them. So it's kind of par for the course for Martinez.
All right, and lastly, I actually don't know why this guy's on here. I get that he did well in his first start of the season, but his second season, he was absolutely terrible. It's King Felix. I think King Felix is we want to talk about going to the tail end of their careers like Miguel Cabrera. I think Felix Hernandez is right there with him. He just doesn't have the same stuff anymore. He's not dominant anymore at all. He needs to attack hitters a whole different way than he's been accustomed to in the past. And I just don't think on his way out sooner rather than later. And it's sad to see because King Felix has always been one of my favorite players. But hey, I mean, are you guys believers in him this year? Like, how do you guys look at King Felix?
No, I'm on the same page as you. I think he's washed up. And I'm not going to be tied into believing in another Mariners player. So
true.
I'm out on King Felix, but he's had a great career and he's old. It's almost like the Miguel Cabrera syndrome. So yeah. I don't expect him to be great. So it's kind of what I expected, to be honest, going into the season.
I think those two guys are very similar. I think they're both the same. One's a pitcher and one's a hitter, obviously, but their primes were at the same exact time, pretty much. And their downfalls are at the same exact time. And they both show signs of life, but they also both show signs that they could be done very, very soon. So sad to see because both of those guys are two of my favorite players of all time. Let's move on to our recurring segments. They're finally back. We'll start with Dud of the Week. Very happy to have this award back, the Matt Strom Award. Who's it going to go to this week, Zach?
Yeah, so my Dud of the Week, there's a lot of good candidates early, but yeah. Kind of to stick it to Graz and Yankee fans, I'm going to go with Gary Sanchez. He's my Dud of the Week. He's been off to a terrible start. He's hitting under 100, 0.63. His on-base percentage is not over 100, so he's not getting walks either. He's striking out a decent amount. I think just because Stanton's there, a lot of the pressure has been taken off him, and people aren't really saying, what's going on with Gary Sanchez. So, I'm interested to see how he bounces back from this, but he started the season absolutely terrible, and it's kind of carried over to the Yankees. They need him to be a power bat in the middle of that order.
Well, it looks like we have a unanimous pick because that was mine as well. Gary Sanchez, 2 for 32 to start the year. I wouldn't say that I'm concerned about him going forward. I do think he's going to figure it out and have some serious power numbers, along with a lot of the guys in that Yankees lineup. But for this past week, I mean, it's hard to really deny him for this for the unanimous Matt Strom Award. So that's my pick. Graz, do you have a takeaway since we're shitting on your guy right now? Do you have a takeaway from that, or do you agree?
Mark Teixeira once started a season batting at 91 through the entire month of April and then hit 45 dingers and almost won the MVP. I'm not worried.
Well, there you go. That's a good outlook to have. That's for sure. All right, we'll move on from that because that's a unanimous pick. We have when you're hot, you're hot. This one was actually a tough one for me. We have a lot of guys having hot starts right now. I'll give my pick first here. Another one of my favorites, Adam Eaton. He missed pretty much all of last season. I think he tore his ACL. I believe that was the injury, and it sucked because that was the Nationals' big addition of the offseason. I think he is what Adam Eaton is. He does not get the attention that he deserves, especially on the Nationals with stars all over the place on that team. Adam Eaton is 10 for 22 to start the season. 2 homers, 1384 OPS, all while playing some of the best defense in the league. So he gets a shout out as my when you're hot this week.
Yeah, so I went with a pitcher for my when you're hot, and it's Patrick Corbin of the D-backs. Like we talked about the D-backs start earlier. He's been, besides Greinke, he's been their best pitcher. He's 2-0. He's got an under 2 ERA. And the big thing for me is like you have to beat your division opponents with your best pitcher on the mound. And he beat the Dodgers and the Rockies in his first 2 starts. So those are 2 for real teams. I'm going to go with Patrick Corbin. He also leads the league in strikeouts. So he's getting a lot of Ks. He's going deep into games. I think he's finally reaching the potential I know a lot of people thought he would reach earlier in his career.
Yeah, early in his career, I'm glad you spoke about that because he was actually on my radar as one of the next big things in the major leagues. Then he kind of went down for a little bit. He actually battled injuries, I'm pretty sure. So he has to bounce back from that. And so far, he's done so. Patrick Corbin, if he can step up in that rotation as the guy, because I really don't think Greinke's going to have it all year, then maybe the Diamondbacks can be a competitive team in that NL West after all. So we'll see about that. Now, this next segment, actually the next few segments to end the show are going to be they're all you, Graz. I mean, you're the guy here. So we're going to start with over-under that you want to give us.
Your over-under. This is a question. We'll tie it into the mailbag as well. It's all a joint, a joint thing. So on the radio, on the fan, there's a current wager going on, and I wanted to ask you guys what you would take. The current wager is, would you rather take Mets total wins or Stanton and Judge combined home runs?
Interesting. Mets total wins?
Yeah. So the amount of wins the Mets have versus Judge Stanton home runs. Who do you think is going to end up with more?
Man, so I'd probably put the Mets. I forget what my projection was on them. I bet they're going to be probably right around 500. If I had to guess, I think that's what I projected, maybe a little bit over 500. So that means that one of Stan or Judge has to completely rake this year and hit over 40 probably. Maybe even close to 50. You know what? I'm going to take the Yankees homers. What do you think, Zach?
I'm on the same page. I think the Yankees homers. I think even if the Mets get to 500, like you said, I think Stanton or Judge will get to that 50 mark. Once it starts heating up in New York and Stanton starts going opposite field, I mean, he could hit. He could hit 6 in a series. I just think that the Yankees home runs will definitely go over the Mets wins.
That's going to be very close, by the way. I bet it could be 1 or 2 homers that settle it. I think it's going to be right around the same mark. It honestly, it really does depend how this Mets rotation stands up, because as it stands right this moment, they could be a 90-win team. I'm not going to say as a definite that they are. I said earlier in the episode that I'm not the biggest believer in the Mets until they prove it. But I mean, they could compete with the Nationals in this division if everything goes well. So that's the way I look at that. What else do you got for us, Graz?
I got one more over-under for you that I was debating at work the other day. Over-under 1.5 playoff teams from the NL Central.
Okay. Who did I have in the playoffs? Obviously the Cubs. I don't think I had the Brewers in. We're counting the wild card playoff, right?
Yeah.
So I'll go with 2. I got the Cardinals in the Cubs.
Yeah, I had Cubs and Brewers, so I think definitely over 1.5 NL Central.
Yeah, NL Central is the division to watch out for this year. I think there's a lot of potential in that division, especially if the friggin' Pirates surprise everybody. They're what are they, 6-1, 7-1 to start the year? So I know I don't expect them to keep up the pace, but it's another factor in the Central.
Okay. Open up the mailbag. You guys ready?
Ready.
Great question. Ready. Great question from my boy Anthony that always asks a question.
Great human being.
Do you think that Ohtani, if he continues this, I'm trying to rephrase it, will impact children to start wanting to pitch and hit like in the future? Let's say he has 10 years of success, just like Steph Curry has made everyone want to shoot 3-pointers.
You know what? I was just about to use the 3-pointer analogy. I think that's the perfect analogy for this. And if that ends up being the case, if Ohtani is really that much of a, I don't know if you want to call it like a difference maker, a renaissance man, whatever you call it, if he ends up being a star in this league, I absolutely think it's going to make everybody want to be a two-way player. Now, I don't know when it starts affecting people, like if it starts affecting people who are already coming into the league, or if it's going to be, like you said, kids who are growing up in Little League. I actually think it could impact the majors sooner rather than later, because I think if you ask anyone in lower level baseball if they could pick both, they'll do both gladly. The league was never really set up for those types of people until Ohtani came along. So I think it's going to open the floodgates. I think there's a lot of talented pitchers / hitters out there. I mean, you want to look at like Bumgarner or someone like that who can rake. I think that's someone who would have potential as a two-way guy, but obviously the Giants aren't going to use him that way. They don't want to risk anything. So
yeah, it's tough, like, because he's DHing. If he was playing in the field, I think it would be even like a bigger thing that he's playing every day and then he pitches on his 5th day, which I don't think like any player could do across the whole season. But growing up, I mean, we all pitch and hit, right? Like, you're not just like put into one category until you probably reach like high school or even college in some cases, but there's still pitchers that hit in college, you know? So I don't think it changes really how people are brought up, but I think it's, you know, people will probably focus on their pitchers will focus on their hitting maybe a bit more in high school, in college, to say, you know, Ohtani's doing it. If I can do that, I'll get a $200 million contract. Even if you don't hit one half of what Ohtani does, if you can be like a productive 20 home run, like 90 RBI guy in the major leagues and then pitch on your 5th day, I mean, that's invaluable to a team. It saves a roster spot as well.
If it does turn out that way, where it's like it opens the floodgates for a bunch of guys who want to be two-way players in the league and are capable of doing it, I could see the DH rule extending to the National League. I think that would be, if it does end up being the case that they finally adopt the DH, I think that would be the biggest argument for why. So that's my take on that.
Okay. 2 more questions from the mailbag.
All right.
First question. I told you we're coming back to Didi Gregorius, who's having an outstanding start. Do the Yankees trade Didi Gregorius while he's hot for this, like if he spends the year hot, for pitching help because they have Gleyber Torres coming up and they're probably going to sign Manny Machado?
Oh, wow. I'll go first, I guess. I don't think you trade Didi Gregorius right now because like I said earlier, I'm high on him even as a Red Sox fan. I think he's their best player right now, just overall. Like, I know he's had some hiccups in the field, but just hitting for average, hitting for power, that ballpark fits him to a T. And I know they have Torres coming up. I'd rather trade Torres, who's not a known, and keep Didi Gregorius, which is a known person right now.
I think you're good either way if you're the Yankees. I think Didi's a stud. But if you do trade him, you do have Torres waiting in the wings. I don't think you can lose in that situation, but I don't want to be a middleman here. So I will say no. I think you keep Didi for now, ride the hot hand or hot bat, whatever you want to call him, and just see what you got out of Torres at a later time. It's no real rush to bring him up and replace Didi. If you have Didi red hot and that's a guy you can count on to produce while your bigger guys in the lineup like Stanton, Judge, Sanchez struggle, he can pick up the slack in that line. So I don't think I would necessarily move him. But if you do, I don't think you're hurting either. So I think it's a win-win.
It all depends on the market for Manny Machado next year. That's what I've been saying.
That's a big factor as well. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to be a Yankee next year.
He wants to play shortstop, right, too, Machado?
I think I've been talking about, I think he's doing this and wants to play shortstop to show that he can play shortstop. But I think he'll move to third base if he came to the Yankees. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't. I mean, that's the position. They're not going to. Drury's not the guy. I think that's pretty straightforward there. He's a rental to get to the Machado point. That's the way I look at it. So, that scares the shit out of me. By the way, Stanton, Machado, Judge, and Sanchez that should be illegal.
And when Greg Bird comes back, you'll actually know the fear of God. Okay.
I want Greg Bird out of my life. Get this guy out of here. All I hear is Greg Bird. This guy could be something. And then I never seen this guy in my life do anything well.
You had a couple big home runs in the playoffs. Okay, moving on. Red Sox question for you guys. Red Sox question.
All right.
This is for my friend Mike, who's an avid Red Sox fan, like a real one, not a fake one. Here we go. Okay. Which front office has been more reckless for future success in the same 3-year window? Is it your guys, Red Sox, or the Cleveland Indians?
Oh, I think it's the Red Sox in a landslide. JD Martinez, I know it's only been a week. That hasn't really panned out yet. I think it will. It hasn't panned out yet. But that contract, regardless, is not great. It's a long-term, it's a 5-year deal. I know he has an opt-out, I think, after 2. I don't think he will opt out if he's doing well and likes Boston. So, I mean, we'll have to see how that goes. But that's not even the big part of it. The big part of it is that all the Red Sox prospects are gone. And now you have Michael Chavis, who was suspended for PEDs. I know that has nothing to do with the front office, but the front office put itself in a position to not succeed by trading all of the prospects away. And Chavis was really the only bright spot left in the farm system. So the farm system's screwed. And if the Red Sox don't do anything for these next 3 years and Martinez opts out, you know, guys like Bogarts and all that underperform, I think it's a bleak future for the Red Sox. A lot can go wrong. The Indians, I still think, have a pretty bright future. But I'm not as educated on their farm system and everything they got going on over there. So I can only speak really to the Red Sox. And I don't like if the Red Sox don't win these next few years, we'll look back at Dombrowski as a huge failure.
Yeah, I'm with Justin here that I think the Red Sox have gone more all in than the Indians because they've had to, because they haven't had the prospects coming up through their organization as the Indians. I mean, most of their players, the Indians, were homegrown. You know, the Red Sox, they have that core of Benintendi, Betts, Bogarts, Devers, Bradley. But, you know, to put the icing on the top of the cake, they had to go out and get Sale. They had to go out and get Price. They had to go out and get Martinez. You know, those are their highest paid players, and those are players they got in free agency. So I think the Red Sox definitely went more all in, but I also think they had to based on what they had around them in their system.
Can't afford to keep getting swept out of the playoffs year in and year out. They can't be that borderline team because the Astros are red hot every single year. The Indians have been better than the Red Sox these last couple of years. The Red Sox need to get over that hump. They're turning into the Nationals. That's what the Red Sox are turning into. This team that just can't get past the first round is very good in the regular season, wins their division, and then just sucks in the playoffs. And becoming the Nationals is my worst fear because that is the worst place you can be in as an organization. This hyped up team with all the talent in the world that can't win a playoff game.
Do you look at the National lineup? It's absurd. Like it's an absurd National League lineup. And if they were in the AL, they would hit even more because they've met.
Totally. The Nationals would win well over, like they'd win 105 games if they were an American League team, no doubt.
I'm not overly impressed with their lineup, to be honest. Like I'm looking at it today. Like after they have Howie Kendrick hitting 6, and then it's like Michael Taylor, Brian Goodwin, some Pedro Severino guy. Like I know the top half is like really strong, but unless you win, it doesn't mean jack shit. You know, like Justin said with the Red Sox, I'd rather have a bunch of gamers than like, oh yeah, our lineup looks good on paper.
Right. I agree 100%.
You guys say that though, because you literally won a World Series with the worst roster I've ever seen. So in 2013, it was Big Papi and some guys.
Well, Big Papi had like a 5,000 OPS in the World Series and like a 700 batting average. So that had a lot to do with it.
You guys have no idea how happy I am he's retired. Like, I never wanted anything bad because I like him as a person, but like, I'm so happy I don't have to see him anymore.
I don't blame you. Don't blame you. We got any more mailbags? One last thing from Graz?
I got one last thing though from me. I don't know if you saw last night, big win from the Brew Crew over the Cubs, walk-off style. I am now cementing myself as a big Brewers guy this year, like I was a big Rockies guys with you last year. They are a very fun team to watch. They do a lot of fun things. Always watch the Brewers when you can.
Do you think, like, what's the biggest not necessarily bandwagon, but like that has the fun team to watch mantra this year? Do you think it's the Brewers?
I think it's the Brewers.
I
get home runs. They don't really pitch, but sometimes they do. They have like 18 outfielders. Like, there's a lot of questions. Ryan Braun still, I think, is doing steroids. It's like it's fun. They have a fun team.
They had that Sandlot video before the season, which was fucking amazing.
Yep.
They had that, and they had. I'm surprised you saw that, Graz. The fact that you were off social media for Lent. Yeah,
people were texting me memes. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I think the Brewers are up there. The Rockies were that last year. I'm actually not as into the Rockies. The Rockies were a little bit of a fad for me last year, and I'm starting to get off the Rockies high a little bit. I am still a Rockies guy through and through. but the high is starting to wear off. So I do need a sort of new team to get that high back. And I think the Brewers might actually be that. I agree with you, guys. They're a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I'm big on the Brewers, and I've never wavered on the Rockies, and I will never waver. I'm all in. But a couple other fun teams to watch. I think the Twins and the White Sox from the AL Central, they're pretty fun to watch because, like Gras said, they pitch sometimes and then sometimes they don't, and they play high-scoring games, and they both have fun young players. So those are two teams. One thing about that walkout that you're talking about, Gras, props to the Brewers sideline reporter. She's some like blonde chick. She translated from Orlando Arcia like herself. So she spoke fluent Spanish. You don't see that often with sideline reporters, so props to her.
Oh yeah, that's one of the more talented things. Well, it's not even really. Is that a talent? Like having two languages, or you just brought up that way? Yeah, I guess you could call it talented.
Well, no, because she was like a white girl. She wasn't like Hispanic either. She was like a Garen Austin speaking fluent Spanish. So I
would love to see Garen Austin try to speak Spanish for a segment.
Just try to translate. Just make no sense.
That would go viral in 2 seconds. Do we got anything else? If we're gonna talk fun teams to watch, keep an eye on the Angels. That's how I'll leave this off. The Angels are my fun team to watch, actually, when I come to think about it. I think it has a lot to do with Ohtani. Mike Trout hasn't even been Mike Trout yet. And when he is, watch out for this team because they are going to go places if, you can get that group, that core of, Trout, Justin Upton, Zach Kozar, Shohei Ohtani. That group is not a group to mess around with. They just need that pitching to hold itself above water, and they're gonna go places this year.
One thing like no one's talking about, it's related to the Angels. So you guys know their big wall in right field with the scoreboard. They decreased the home run line. So the home run line is about 8 feet. So if you hit it off that scoreboard, it's now a home run when you used to have to hit it over it. And my thing is, I think this is a conspiracy to get Trout and Ohtani more home runs. Because I was watching the game last night, and a ball hit off the scoreboard in right field, and I'm like, oh, that's probably a double. And I saw the yellow line. I'm like, oh, they decreased it this season. When they bring Ohtani over, left-handed hitter. I think no one's talking about it, and they just took 20 feet away from being a home run. So I don't know.
I don't hate the move. I don't hate the move.
More home runs, but also there's like the ball hits off the scoreboard and it bounces off, and I guess it's a home run now. So
that reminds me of the sort of the meme with the Red Sox. As soon as the Yankees got Stanton, they extended the monster like 100 feet. That's what that reminds me of. The renovations for the Green Monster.
Exactly. These teams just have like full autonomy to change their ballpark to fit their team. It's so crazy.
The Yankees did that.
Yeah, exactly. The Yankees have like a little baby field.
Everyone makes fun of that, but the Red Sox also have a little baby field.
Yeah, not as bad. Not as bad.
The pole in right field is at like 207.
Yeah, but you gotta have the craziest launch angle just to get it over the monster at Fenway Park. Like I don't even get how people do that. I think if I were to play at that field, I'll hit from third base because I'm obviously not hitting it out of the park from home plate. I still couldn't hit it over the monster. I think everything I hit would just hit the scoreboard directly. I would not be able to get it over halfway up the monster.
I would look like Babe Ruth at Yankee Stadium. I would just be hitting them, pulling the ball like second deck.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Last question. Do you think from home plate you could do tennis racket baseball and hit the tennis ball over the monster?
No.
With a tennis racket and a tennis ball?
Maybe I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit. I don't know.
I've never hit a tennis racket at a baseball field. So
I don't know. I've never been. I'd have to like go to home plate at Fenway and be the judge, like, and actually see what I'm about to do. I can't like judge from just what I've seen from being out in the stands. Like I know it's not like exactly the farthest distance from home plate, but I don't know.
Roger Federer could. Does that answer your question?
And he thinks tennis balls are yellow, which is bullshit.
That's just ridiculous.
Wait, you guys think tennis balls are green?
No, we're ending. I'm done. I'm
out. Come on, don't do this.
All right, yeah, let's just end it because I don't want to go on this rabbit hole.
All right, we'll end it there. That's Tater Talk. We are back for the season. So keep an eye out for new episodes. We haven't committed to a certain day yet. It's complicated when you have a life outside the podcast life to commit to a day. So just stay tuned. Stay subscribed. That's the best way to find out when the new episodes are released. You'll get them on your device as soon as a new episode is out. So on that note, I guess we will just have to see you guys later.
All right, peace.